It is 03:30 on the morning of October 25, 1942, and Sergeant John Basilone is running through the dark on Guadalcanal carrying a Browning M1917 A1 heavy machine gun. The gun and its tripod weigh 91 3/4 pounds. The barrel jacket is scalding. Japanese soldiers are inside the Marine perimeter, and one of his gun sections has gone silent. Behind him, 3,000 troops of Japan's elite Sendai Division are slamming into a line held by just 15 Marines and 4 water-cooled machine guns. The Japanese expect to overrun them in minutes. They are about to make the worst mistake of the Guadalcanal campaign. By dawn, 1,462 Japanese bodies will be stacked in front of this position, and Basilone's tiny section will have effectively destroyed an entire regiment. The weapon they carried and the island they fought on explain everything about how 15 men held against a force 200 times their size. Guadalcanal in October 1942 was the hinge of the Pacific War. Marines of the 1st Marine Division had landed on August 7th and seized a half-built Japanese airstrip, renaming it Henderson Field after Major Lofton Henderson, killed at Midway. That airstrip was now home to the Cactus Air Force, a patchwork collection of Marine Wildcats, Navy Dauntlesses, and Army Airacobras that was the only thing standing between the Japanese Navy and total control of the Solomon Islands. Between September and November 1942, the Cactus Air Force claimed 268 Japanese planes shot down in aerial combat alone. Lose Henderson Field, lose the air cover. Lose the air cover, lose the island. Lose the island, and Japan controls the shipping lanes to Australia. The Japanese understood this perfectly. Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake had already thrown 2 forces at the Marine perimeter and watched both get annihilated. Colonel Ichiki's detachment was wiped out at the Tenaru River in August, roughly 800 Japanese killed for 38 Marines dead. General Kawaguchi's brigade was broken at Edson's Ridge in September. Now Hyakutake committed his best remaining unit, the 2nd Infantry Division, known as the Sendai Division, drawn largely from Miyagi Prefecture. 7,000 men in 3 regiments under Lieutenant General Masao Maruyama. Maruyama's order to his officers before the attack said everything about the stakes. This is the decisive battle between Japan and the United States, in which the rise or fall of the Japanese Empire will be decided. If we do not succeed in the occupation of these islands, no one should expect to return alive to Japan. The plan was to cut a 15-mile trail through the jungle south of Henderson Field, swing around behind the Marine perimeter, and attack from the south. They called it the Maruyama Road. In theory, it would deliver 7,000 fresh troops to a weakly defended sector. In practice, the Maruyama Road nearly destroyed the Sendai Division before it ever reached the Marines. The trail ran through deep, muddy ravines, steep ridges, and jungles so thick that entire companies lost contact with each other in the dark. Soldiers carried their packs, their rifles, and 1 mountain gun shell each. Most of the division's heavy weapons, the artillery, the heavy mortars, had to be abandoned along the route. Men arrived at the assembly area exhausted, dehydrated, and disorganized. The attack was postponed from October 22nd to the 23rd, then to the 24th. On the Japanese right wing, General Kawaguchi, the same commander who had failed at Edson's Ridge, was supposed to lead the 230th Infantry into the attack. Instead, he tried to shift his force east on his own initiative, disobeyed a direct order from Maruyama to revert, and was relieved of command on the spot. Colonel Toshinari Shoji took over a confused, scattered right wing that would barely participate in the battle. Only 1 battalion of the 230th ever made contact with the Marines. The entire weight of the assault would fall on the left wing. Major General Yumio Nasu's 29th Infantry Regiment, roughly 3,000 men, heading straight for the southern face of the Lunga perimeter. And on that southern face, waiting for them, was exactly 1 understrength Marine battalion. Earlier on October 24th, intelligence about a Japanese force inland had pulled Lieutenant Colonel Herman Hannikin's 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, off the southern line and sent them to the Matanakaw River. That left Lieutenant Colonel Louis B. Chesty Puller's 1st Battalion, 7th Marines alone. About 700 Marines stretched across 2,500 yards of defensive frontage with no reserves behind them. In the center of Puller's line, attached to support Captain Marshall Moore's Company C, known as Suicide Charlie, was Sergeant John Basilone and his machine gun sections from Company D. 15 Marines. 4 Browning M1917A1 heavy machine guns. The Browning M1917A1 was the reason those 15 men had a chance. A water-cooled, belt-fed, recoil-operated 30 caliber heavy machine gun, it fired the .30-06 cartridge at 450 to 600 rounds per minute, with an effective range of 1,000 meters. Fully assembled with its tripod, water jacket, and a 250-round cloth belt ammunition box, it weighed roughly 93 pounds. The water jacket held about 1 gallon. Under sustained fire, the water would flash to steam, vented through a rubber hose into a condensing can, so the position would not be revealed by a steam plume rising from the jungle floor. Crews trained to disassemble and reassemble the weapon blindfolded. The assistant gunner swapped scalding barrels using an asbestos mitten. One gun, properly supplied, could fire continuously for hours. A single Browning section in a prepared position could put out the kind of sustained firepower that no number of bolt-action rifles could match. 4 of them, interlocked in a defensive line, could create a killing field that no infantry charge could cross. That was the theory. At 21:30 on the night of October 24th, the theory was about to be tested. 3,000 yards in front of Puller's Wire, an outpost under Sergeant Ralph Briggs picked up movement. Japanese soldiers were filtering through the kunai grass in massive numbers. Some of them singing, some of them smoking cigarettes. Briggs got on the field telephone to Puller's command post. "Colonel, there's about 3,000 Japs between you and me. Positive. They've been all around us, singing and smoking cigarettes, heading your way." Between 4 in the afternoon and 9 at night, heavy rain had thrown the Japanese formations into chaos. Units that were supposed to attack in coordinated waves were now stumbling forward in disorganized clumps. Shoji's right wing on the east had accidentally turned parallel to the Marine lines and was marching past them in the dark. Nasu's left wing, the 29th Infantry, found what it was looking for. Around 01:15 on October 25th, the 9th Company of the 3rd Battalion, 29th Infantry Regiment, charged headlong into the barbed wire and cheval de frise in front of Company C's position. According to Major Gary Cozzens of the Marine Corps, writing for the Marine Corps University Press and citing Richard Frank's definitive history of the campaign, the 9th Company moved straight into the obstacles and was decimated. Within 5 minutes, a Marine machine gun section, led by Sergeant John Basilone, had killed almost every member of the 9th Company. 5 minutes. An entire company gone. The Brownings were doing exactly what they were designed to do. Interlocking fields of fire, 250-round belts feeding continuously. Japanese soldiers stacking up against the wire faster than the bodies could fall. Basilone's gunners had to pause between bursts to clear corpses that were blocking their fields of fire. By 01:25, the 11th Marines' 105mm howitzers were slamming shells into Nasu's assembly areas behind the attacking force. Puller called for reinforcement. The Japanese would not stop coming. At approximately 03:30, Colonel Masajiro Furumiya, commander of the 29th Infantry, broke through the Marine line with 2 companies of his 3rd Battalion and his regimental headquarters staff. They punched a salient roughly 150 yards wide and 100 yards deep into Puller's center. This was the crisis. Japanese soldiers were inside the perimeter, between the gun positions, and Basilone's section was right in the middle of it. One of his gun sections went down. Grenades and mortar fire killed or wounded the crews, leaving only 2 men still able to fight. Basilone picked up one of the Brownings, all 91 3/4 pounds of it, and sprinted along the trail to the silenced position. 2 Marines went with him. In his own words, from a 1943 interview preserved at the National Archives, "On the way over, we ran smack into a party of Japs, about 8 of them. We let them have it and continued on our way." He set the gun up and got it firing. Then he crawled to another disabled Browning, cleared the stoppage in the dark by feel alone, and got that one firing too. He had lost the asbestos mitten used for barrel changes somewhere in the chaos. When the barrels glowed white hot from sustained fire, He grabbed them barehanded, burning his hands and arms, and swapped them out anyway. The water jackets were boiling dry. Marines urinated into them to keep the guns from seizing. Private Billy Crumpton, severely wounded, stayed on his gun and kept firing. When Crumpton finally went down, Basilone put one Marine on the right flank gun and one on the left, then fired both weapons himself, rolling back and forth between them. In his own words, "I'd fire one and then roll over and fire the other." Belted ammunition ran low. The supply trail was cut by Japanese soldiers inside the salient. Basilone grabbed his Colt M1911A1 .45 caliber pistol, fought his way through the Japanese lines, ran roughly 150 yards to the ammunition supply, and ran back carrying belted .30 caliber ammunition through the same gauntlet. He made the trip more than once. Between the sprints, between the barrel changes, between feeding belt after belt into the Brownings, he fought with his pistol at close range. Japanese soldiers were everywhere around the gun pits. Every now and then someone would yell, "Look out!" So I grabbed my automatic pistol, which I kept on the deck beside me, and use it, Basilone said. Near contemporary accounts add that he used a machete when they got inside arm's reach. At 03:45, reinforcement finally arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hall's 3rd Battalion, 164th Infantry, a North Dakota Army National Guard unit of the Sendai Division, was fed into the line piecemeal in the dark and rain. Army soldiers and Marines fought side by side through the rest of the night. Puller, a man who never praised anyone lightly, later told the 164th's commanding officer, "They're almost as good as Marines." By dawn, the Japanese attack was broken. Furumiya and most of his men who had penetrated the salient were dead, hunted down through the morning of October 25th. 104 additional Japanese were killed inside the perimeter during daylight. The next night, October 25th into the 26th, Maruyama committed his reserve. The 16th Infantry Regiment under Colonel Toshiro Hiroyasu went in alongside the shattered remnants of the 29th. Marine and Army rifle fire, machine gun fire, mortar fire, artillery, and canister rounds from 37mm anti-tank guns fired point blank tore Nasu's remaining force apart. Colonel Hiroyasu was killed. 4 of his battalion commanders were killed. General Nasu himself was hit by rifle fire and mortally wounded. A captured diary from a Japanese major, found after the battle, read, "I do not know what excuse to give. I apologize for what I have done. I am going to return my borrowed life today with short interest." When it was over, burial details counted 1,462 Japanese bodies in front of Puller's sector alone. Puller told Basilone the next day that there were nearly 1,000 dead Japanese in front of the line, with several hundred more between the lines and the wire. 38 were stacked around the 2 machine guns on the right flank of Basilone's section. Marine casualties in 1st Battalion 7th Marines for the entire action: 19 killed, 30 wounded, 12 missing. 15 Marines with 4 water-cooled machine guns had held against 3,000. The math does not make sense until you understand what a Browning M1917A1 does to a massed infantry charge across open ground. The weapon turned a handful of men into a wall that a regiment could not cross. Basilone was one of only 3 Marines from his section who walked away from those gun pits. Private Nash Phillips of Fayetteville, North Carolina, one of the wounded, saw Basilone in the dressing station after the battle and left the most vivid portrait we have. He was barefooted and his eyes were red as fire. His face was dirty black from gunfire and lack of sleep. His shirt sleeves were rolled up to his shoulders. He had a .45 tucked into the waistband of his trousers. He just dropped by to see how I was making out, me and the others in the section. I'll never forget him. He'll never be dead in my mind. On May 21, 1943, Sergeant John Basilone became the first enlisted Marine of the Second World War to receive the Medal of Honor. He was promoted to platoon sergeant and sent home. On September 19, 1943, 15,000 people lined the streets of Raritan, New Jersey, his hometown, a place whose entire population has never exceeded 8,000. He sold war bonds. He was offered a commission and an instructor's billet, a safe way to ride out the rest of the war as a hero. He turned it all down. "I'm just a plain soldier and want to stay one," he said. "I ain't no officer and I ain't no museum piece. I belong back with my outfit." At Camp Pendleton, he met Sergeant Lena Mae Riggy of the Marine Corps Women's Reserve. They married at St. Mary's Star of the Sea in Oceanside, California on July 10, 1944. 7 months later, on February 19, 1945, Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone landed on Red Beach 2 at Iwo Jima with Company C, 1st Battalion, 27th Marines. He single-handedly destroyed a Japanese blockhouse with demolitions and grenades, then guided a tank through a minefield under direct fire. Pushing toward Airfield No. 1, he was killed. Research by Hugh Ambrose for the HBO series The Pacific concluded the cause was likely small arms fire to the right groin and neck, not the mortar shrapnel cited in earlier reports. He was 28 years old. Basilone is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 12. Lena Riggy Basilone never remarried. She died on June 11, 1999, and was buried at Riverside National Cemetery, still wearing her wedding ring. He remains the only enlisted Marine in the Second World War to hold both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross. 2 Navy destroyers carry his name. A stretch of Interstate 5 in California is the John Basilone Memorial Highway. A bronze statue stands in the center of Raritan, New Jersey. But the truest monument to Manila John Basilone is simpler than all of that. It is 4 machine guns, a strip of jungle, and the fact that 15 Marines held the line when 3,000 men came to take it. If you want to see another story of impossible odds and unbelievable courage from the Second World War, that video is on screen now. Subscribe for more stories like this one.